Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending today's webinar. Today, I would like to basically discuss what we've done over the Kempfield project in the last 6 months and where we will be heading towards in the next 6 months moving forward. So obviously, the Kempfield deposit is situated in the New England orogenic fold belt. This fold belt is a world-class geological province with polymetallic signature right across the whole spectrum of minerals. This particular area of the Licton Fold Belt has had quite an extensive exploration mining history dating back to the 1800s, with massive resources delineated in the last 20 years, which includes Cadia Valley, which is controlled by Newmont, and then you've got Lewis Ponds from Godolphin, and obviously some other smaller gold discoveries in the last 5 years. We've just recently upgraded our Kempfield JORC resource, which currently stands as the second largest undeveloped silver deposit in Australia, with over 65.8 million ounces of silver, over 125,000 ounces of gold, over 207,000 tonnes of lead-contained metal, and over 420,000 tonnes of zinc as well. Also, Argent actually controls and has actually owned the land which incorporates the current JORC resource. The company purchased the land back in 2008, and subsequent to that, we have over 90% of the resource currently within Argent's control. In the last 6 months, we've actually undertaken an extensive small RC drilling program, which we basically targeted the northeast extension of Low 200. We've intersected some significant shallow gold mineralization, averaging between 23 and up to 25 meters in mineralization. So that's actually extended and really opened up the northeast extension from Low 200. But also what we've done is we've also extended the western zone, in which we've intersected some very thick, broad silver and lead mineralization starting from near surface. So what that's basically has outlined is the fact that these things that are still continuing along strike, even after 15 years of intense drilling over the current Kempfield deposit. Last week, we announced the upgrade of the JORC resource. Now the resource stands at 2.3 kilometers in strike, averaging over 400 meters in width, and it's extending beyond 300 vertical meters from surface. Based on the 3D images, you can see that the mineralization over Kempfield is still not closed off. We have a lot of deep drill targets further to extend over all 3 lodes. Some of these targets are believed to extend another 200 vertical meters from surface, which we believe that there's a potential over 400 to 500 vertical meters of continuous mineralization. We will be testing these areas in the upcoming year to prove the fact that Kempfield is still a very extensive mineralized ore body that hasn't been closed off by any means of the imagination. We also have within the central lodes a very broad, very poorly tested area. So we believe that this 600-meter strike distance will actually give us more tonnage, more grade, and more metal content in the ground. So when you compare Argent to our peers, the closest peers that we can find on the ASX platform is the Bowen's silver deposit and the Paris silver deposit, which is controlled by Investigator Resources. So when you, so when you look at that table at the base, you will see the fact that we are highly underrated as a silver company. So when you look at our market cap versus our ounce equivalent ratios between both those companies, we are valued between 5 and 10 times lower than what these companies are currently looking at. So you can see that we have a lot more value in terms of bringing these resources to the platform, and it increases our investor confidence that we have the potential to be valued so much higher as opposed to where we're currently sitting at. So where are we going from here? So obviously, we've quickly discussed that the Kenfield deposit has not been closed off. We have another 81 holes of historic mineralisation that are continuing at depth, and mineralisation is still extended beyond those areas. In the last 6 months, what we've done is we've undertaken a very extensive geochemical programs over the Kenfield area, but outside of the main resource area. So we've taken in excess of over 500 samples in the last 6 months. We've taken more samples over Kenfield in the last 6 months as opposed to what has been taken over in the last 30 years by various companies, including Golden Cross and Shell back in the day. So on the basis of that, we've delineated 4 exciting brand new zones that have never been systematically followed up. So we have the Kenfield Northwest Mineralised Zone, which is extending northeast from the current Kenfield deposit. We also have the Sugarloaf Zone, which is to the east of the Kenfield deposit, and obviously the Henrys and the Golden Wattle zones, which are around 1 to 1.8 kilometres due east of the Kenfield deposit. Based on the surface geochemistry, what we've found is that there's very, very high-grade silver with lead and zinc credits associated with these actual mineralized lenses. If I could just show you, this is the rock type that we're finding up at Kenfield Northwest, which is a gossan. And gossans are usually very good indicators of a potential ore body at below the surface. So based on that, we can find that we've got the similar rock types at what we're seeing at Kenfield in terms of these gossans, these barytic signatures, and obviously the silver and the lead and the zinc, which is extremely high grade. So moving forward, we're planning to drill over 50 RC holes. At this stage, we're looking at drilling around about 3,500 meters. We've applied to the New South Wales regulator. We are pending drilling approvals. And if everything goes well, then we should be potentially drilling next month over Kenfield. So looking briefly at what we're going to do, we're going to target 4 different areas up at Kenfield Northwest Zone, looking at 5 areas that we'll be drilling at the Sugarloaf Zone and 2 areas each over the Golden Wattle and the Henry zones. So on the basis of that, we anticipate that we should start getting drill assays coming through September, October, and we're quite excited about moving forward with Kenfield. So on the basis of that, that's just a quick overall summary. So moving forward, hopefully we'll get the drilling rig on the ground in the next couple of weeks to start testing all these areas around Kenfield with a view that if these areas are mineralized, then we'll start increasing the mineralized footprint over Kenfield, but also we're targeting shallow, high-grade feed for a potential mining operation in the near distant future over Kenfield. And thank you very much for your time.
Excellent. Thanks, Pedro. I knew you were keen to keep it short and sweet, but I knew you're also very keen to talk to investors today about the significance that Kenfield now hosts the 2nd largest undeveloped silver deposit in Australia. And as you say, there's significant exploration potential still there as well. We're going to open it up to questions. Pedro is very keen to hear questions from attendees. If you'd like to ask a question, please use the Q&A box in Zoom. Pedro, a couple of questions have already come through. The first one we'll get to. The market doesn't seem to be paying much respect to recent announcements, even with the price appreciation of metals in recent times. When do you see some light at the end of the tunnel for the share price?
Yep, that's a very good question. Come next month, I'll be attending the Australasian Precious Metals Conference in Sydney. We've set up a 3-day booth between myself and Andrew. And on the back of that, we're trying to promote the fact that Argent is here and we are a serious exploration, potential mining operation in the near distant future. So we're trying to get the message out there. We're trying to put Argent on the actual platform for a lot of fund managers, stockbrokers, and so forth. And on top of that, I'll be attending the one-to-one markets in Singapore at the end of September, which I'm hoping that we can get a more international exposure over Argent as the company moving forward. Unfortunately, as I say, you can't sell a secret. So what we're going to do in the next 2 to 3 months is have an aggressive promotion program by which we will allow companies and obviously silver investors that we are here and that we are a serious company and that we are sitting on the second largest undeveloped silver resource in Australia, but also we have a lot of upside moving forward with this next drilling program, so we can start putting a lot more tons, ounces, and metal content on the deck.
Thanks, Pedro. There's been a lot of exploration activity in the first 6 months of 2024. Can you just provide a bit of an overview of what this has demonstrated and how this is going to lead to your next round of exploration activity?
Yeah, so what we initially did in April is we did a 12 RC drilling program on the basis that we believe that the historic drilling did not fully test the actual extensions of the low 200. We demonstrated that the fact that by us going back in there and drilling only 1,000 meters, we've intersected some very thick, shallow silver zones that were previously untested. But when you look at the overall database, what we found is that there's a lot of drilling within the actual resource that ended in mineralization. So there's a lot of drill holes that we could potentially extend at depth and actually start increasing the resource. Obviously will increase the overall tonnage and grade. But by us actually looking outside of the current resource area by surface geochemically sampling, that we have all these extensive zones on the same strike, the same width, that could be potentially another Kempfield in the making. And by us actually putting 50 to 60 RC drill holes, reconnaissance holes, what these will demonstrate is that there could be potential extensions of Kempfield. So looking at the northwest zones, looking at Sugarloaf, just those two combined, you're looking at over 4 kilometers of strike. Whereas when you look at the current resource over Kempfield, it's only striking 2.3. So in the perfect world, what we're hoping to find is a potential another Kempfield or a potential 2 Kempfields. But unfortunately, these areas have never been systematically tested historically, and we're the first company that's actually looked outside of these areas. And what we're finding is that the grade is almost 10 to 20-fold higher of silver that's in currently over the actual Kempfield areas.
Pedro, how will you prioritise the next drilling program? And and the second part to that question is, do you have the funds to do all the drilling that you would like to at this stage?
Absolutely. So the way that we prioritise these areas is obviously having a direct geochemical signature from surface. So with the upcoming drilling program, we're testing several spots over those extensive zones where we've hit the highest grade mineralization. Now, that could be a combination of silver, lead, zinc, could be just purely silver. Obviously gold as well, because we're hitting up to 75 grams of gold on the eastern flanks of Kempfield, which is potentially a different mineralized model in terms that it could be an orogenic gold base metal type of scenario, or it could be a potential VMS. We don't know as yet. So this is part of us moving forward, is to delineate what type of geological model that we're dealing with. And in terms of funding, we've got more than enough cash to run another 3 or 4 drilling programs based on the cap raise that we recently did. So the company is very strong in terms of its cash position, over $3.1 million. So we've budgeted around about $350,000 on this program. So if you couple what we're going to spend and the amount of funds available, we've got that more than covered for another 2 or 3 drilling programs.
Okay, excellent. Can you just provide some detail about the Kempfield location and what sort of advantages it has in New South Wales?
Well, number one, Kempfield's situated between Orange and Bathurst, and they are 2 major regional towns. They vary between 35 and up to 45,000 people in population. We're only about half an hour's drive from Orange and about 35 minutes from Bathurst. So in terms of the workforce, there's an already established workforce there. And we've just recently completed our community consultations at Trunky Creek. We invited all the local stakeholders, the local community there, and we've had a very positive feedback from the actual local community in that they want to see Kentfield develop into a potential open-cut mining operation, which would obviously bring security and viability to those regional centres. So it's been a very positive, very helpful community consultation moving forward, and that we've had the fact that there's been a lot of people in favour for us to move forward with this project.
Excellent. Can you just give us a reminder again about the objectives of, I guess, the next 3 months, and sort of what announcements could we expect as shareholders?
I think the next announcement would be obviously the approvals to commence drilling over Kentfield. Thereafter, that will be updating the market as the drilling assays come to us. We'll be doing the interpretations, the cross sections, and releasing those results. So, just on the back of those drilling announcements, we might anticipate 3 or 4 announcements moving forward. And obviously, the end game there is, if mineralisation is actually delineated, then we'll start moving towards doing a resource drill out program over those zones.
Excellent. Pedro, that looks like all the questions that we have here today. I'd just like to pass it back to you, leave it for you to give some final thoughts and just, a final message to shareholders and also, potential investors. What's exciting you about this MRE upgrade?
Yeah, so what it's basically showing now with the mineral resource upgrade is Kentfield is a potential standalone silver mine. Moving forward, we're really excited to get on the ground, start drilling outside of the known resource area, because what we believe is that it could be another satellite Kentfield or maybe 2 Kentfields. We don't know at this stage, but by us actually concentrating outside of the resource area, but also at the same time still push the current resource by drilling deeper holes, in that we might be sitting on something that could be a potential economic ore body moving forward. The great thing about Kentfield is that it's still vastly under-drilled. We know that we're getting fantastic results, all grade zones from surface. We know that we're getting gold out to the east, high-grade lead and zinc from surface. So it's a very, very exciting time moving forward with this project, in that every time we actually do more and more work, it just gives us better and better results, and we have the confidence that this project will be a potential operation in the near distant future.